What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is actually Teddy from the future. I just wanted to clear up where I'm actually getting. So this is the code that we're actually going to be testing. What you want to do, I'm going to drop a link down below. Clone this repository. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to hook up the database. You can leave the code as it is. But if you want to actually have, this is actually the MVC project that I built in my previous course. If you really want to kind of dig into the code and maybe look at some more and get it running, it's super easy. The only thing that you need to do is hook up the database and hook up Cloudinary, and you should be good to go. But you don't really need to. Just clone this repository. This is the code that I'm going to be using in the video to test, and follow along and we will learn unit tests together for MVC. What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video we're going to start on making unit tests for MVC, and more specifically we're going to start with controllers. So there's a big question in unit testing, and that is, what exactly should I test when it comes to MVC framework and a lot of these web frameworks that you use? And there's, as I mentioned in the very first video, it's an art. It's really up to your discretion, and there are some general guidelines, and that is, you really don't want to test everything. I think there's this huge kind of like misconception that everything should be tested, and I think that some people do hold those views, but realistically you should only test things that are mission critical to your app and that are changing a lot. There's no reason to test things like models. There's no reason to test things like a little one-liner in a repository, or a function with one line. I'm going to show you how to do testing repositories, but as a general rule, you should stick to those and don't get too carried away with tests, because tests can kind of be cumbersome. You want tests to be testing the most important aspects of your app, and most of that in this app is going to be controllers. You definitely want to I saw online one time somebody said do not test controllers. You definitely want to test controllers because a lot of times they're mission critical and they're changing a lot. So you definitely want to test controllers, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to go in here, and we haven't even so what we're going to do is we're going to add a new project. And this is kind of the beauty of Microsoft, is that you can just quickly toss in these projects, and you can add them, and the SLN bundles them together, and it makes it a lot more modular. Tossing in a unit test like this in another framework like JavaScript is it's not that difficult, but it isn't as elegant as Microsoft's XUnit and just being able to come in here and like toss in a project. So we're just going to go in here. This is your typical naming convention. After you have the name of your web app followed by a dot, and you have test, and we're going to of course make it XUnit. So we go in here, and luckily Visual Studio is going to do a lot for you, but I still, whenever I put in a unit XUnit just like this, I just like to run it one time to make sure that it's at least succeeding, and all the dependencies are in it. And then I'm going to go in here. Also, another thing is that you have, it also includes all of this stuff for you, but we don't have everything that we want. So I am actually, while we're in here, I'm just going to go ahead and add everything that we need, because it's better just to take care of this stuff right now than have to worry about it down the line. So going to go into manage NuGet packages. We're going to get fluent assertions. Then we're going to go fake it easy. Let's go here. Go fake it easy. Actually, let me make sure I'm getting what I want. Kind of blowing through this and clicking way too fast. Okay, so install fake it easy. Also, with this, with Visual Studio and .NET 6, Visual Studio 2022, you don't actually have to add the references, but if you are on a previous version, you're going to have to add the references. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to bring in these functions from this web app. So if you're in a previous version, I'm in .NET. I'm in the newest of I'm in .NET 6. I'm in 2022 Visual Studio. But if that is not you, go in here. You want to go to Add Project Reference, and then you want to click the Run Group Web App, and you want to click OK for it to add that reference. But I'll show you an easier way if you're in the newer version. So we're gonna go in here, and one of the first places I think is probably the best place to start is the controller. I think the controllers are usually the largest. They are the most changing. Controllers change a lot, and they are a good thing to unit test because a lot of times I think, and this is just kind of like my opinion, okay, this isn't just like a hard fast rule, is a lot of times things break at the controller level. Database calls tend to be a lot less they're usually not as big. Like, we try to tame our controllers and we try to extract away a lot of the stuff, but still they can break. And let me go in here. So naming convention, we're going to go into the add. We're going to go here. We're going to go new folder, and we can just call this controller. And you can call it controller test. You could do that, but I'm just going to call it controller. Then we're going to go here, and we are going to add new item. And we're going to call this, we're going to start with the club controller tests. Okay, then we go add. And I'm going to change this to public. Awesome. So we've got our club controller test. Let me make sure here. With XUnit, we don't have to put any type of attribute up here that will handle it. But if you're using Microsoft Test, or if you're using, I've actually never used InUnit before. I've only used XUnit and Microsoft Test. But if you're using Microsoft Test, you have to put an attribute up here. But with XUnit, you don't have to do that. And in typical fashion, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to test the index, because I think the index is a very good place to start. So whenever you are beginning a test, and whenever you are kind of you have to build almost like the infrastructure for these tests. And the first and best place to start, I think, is to start mocking all of these dependencies. You need to bring in all of these dependencies first, because everything in your app is going to be using these dependencies, and it's good to go ahead and bring them in. And I'm going to show you a good way to put all of these dependencies in the controller, so you don't have to go through each and every test and inject the dependencies, because that would be like literal torture. Okay, so first thing is we need to mock the repositories. And if you don't know, if you're coming into this video from maybe Google search and you don't know about what mocking is, I've already covered mocking in a previous video, but essentially what this is doing, and this is just to kind of reiterate this and maybe help you build maybe a more solid understanding. And here we go. This is another important part. Add reference to run group. Visual Studio 2022 will automatically do this for you, and that's where it is. So if you're in 2022, go ahead and click the add reference, and it will do everything for you. We also want to bring in Fake It Easy, and we also want to bring in our club controller up at the top here. So we're going to go club controller, or iClub. We're going to bring in the interface for the iClub repository, and we have iClub repository like this. Now, let me see here. Okay, great. And it just exited out for some reason. I have no idea why. All right, so why did we just do that? Why are we bringing in this repository thing? This controller depends. Key point, depends dependency. We're bringing in our dependencies. And whenever you are testing, you don't actually want this code to actually, it's such a strange concept, but whenever you are mocking, you don't want this code to actually go into the repository and execute. You want to mock it, and you want it to return fake values. Why do you want it to return fake values? Why are we mocking, faking these? Is because you want whenever this function is executed, you want this to always have the same exact value. And if you're tied to an actual repository, that's not going to be possible because it's pulling from an actual database, or it could be pulling from another area that's constantly changing. We mock stuff, number one, because it's a lot easier, and we mock stuff, number two, because it helps make everything like a science test. That's why they call it a test. It makes sure that the environment is always the same, it's never changing, and that it's injecting fake values into these repositories so that you're always getting back the same result. Otherwise, how would we actually be able to run tests if these values are actually changing? I hope that made sense to you. So we're going to go down. Next thing we want to do is we want to mock our photo service. We're just getting all these dependencies in here. That's like the main point right now. Don't worry too much about the test. So we're going to go in here, then we're going to fake the exact same thing. So we're going to go here, we're going to go fake, then we're going to bring in that iPhoto repository. Then we go here, let's see. And for some reason it's not working. So, could not be found. Let me see here. iPhotos. Oh, okay, this is iPhoto service. It's actually a service, my bad. And then this should be like that. Then we're gonna go up here. Photo service, and we're injecting these. If the reason that we do this is because we could, in theory, just go into every single one of these tests and put them into the function, but we do this so that it declares it when this constructor runs. And if you know anything about constructors are going to execute at the very beginning. It's going to execute, it's going to put these values in there, and then you have your values down here for the rest of your tests, and you don't have to put them inside every single function because functions are scoped. And if you didn't do this, you would have to, like I said, put them in every single one. And I think it sounds like I'm getting a little bit too carried away here with telling you about this. I'm assuming you're a developer, so you probably already know this. And we're not going to worry about the HTTP context accessor. Here's another rule with unit tests is that, I'm sorry to tell you this, you can't unit test. There are some things that cannot be unit tested, and it exists all the time. Like there's so many things that can't be unit tested, and one of those things is static functions. And unfortunately, our whenever we use this right here, and I actually didn't think about this, and I could probably go back and refactor this, but just for right now, we cannot unit test this because this is static. So typically, another reason you want to stay away from static functions is you can't unit test them. So another fun fact for the day. So we're going to go here, we're going to write our fact, and we're going to test our controller. And as just typical naming convention, you have the class first. So the class that we're testing is the club controller. Then we're testing the index, and then our desired action is that it returns success. Then we're going to, and it could be anything. You feel free to do whatever you want in these unit tests. You could test literally for anything, and there's, like I said, no hard and fast rules. So whenever you are looking at this function, or whenever you're saying like, whoa, okay, like what do I need? Like the first thing that you should always start looking at is, what do I need? What do I need to bring in? Then go here, arrange, act, assert. And you typically want to always have this, you either want, I need to finish that, dependencies. You typically always want to put these into your code. You always want either comments, or you want those little collapsible things, or that you want regions. And regions are pretty much like this, but they're collapsible. And I'm just going to add comments right now because that's just what I have. But feel free to put regions in there as well too. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need to mock is we're going to have to return clubs in this, and we want to mock the clubs. I already know that we're going to have to return clubs from this repository. We're going to have to mock this right here, and we're going to have to mock this club because that's what we're returning. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to fake an I enumerable of clubs. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to control dot, bring that in, looking good. Okay. And you may be wondering, well, why did you just do that? I'm doing that because I know that we're going to have to return when this thread, right, or this function right here, this repository function gets called, and we can just kind of go in and take a look at it if you're not familiar with this code base, is that it's going to go in here. This is actually going to return an I enumerable of club, and that's what's actually coming back. And we essentially need to mock this. We need to make a fake function call so that when this gets called, it fakes this function and returns it. And if you don't know like what I'm talking about, I'll just go ahead and show you what I'm going to do. So we're going to go in here. I'm going to go club repository dot get all. We're going to go dot returns. Then we're going to go to clubs. And what is it? Okay, so what is actually, it is very confusing. I will level with you. Like a lot of this stuff is just like, why do we even do this? And it's kind of even difficult for me to even explain why. So what this is going to do is, it's pretty, if I had to give you kind of like a dummy version, and I honestly don't know exactly how like this stuff, like a lot of this stuff works. Like I just do it, and I'm just like the developer who's just doing it, and you don't really even need to know. What it's going to do is when this thing executes, it's essentially going to have like a fake placeholder for this, so that when this returns, this I enumerable, this clubs that we passed into here, is going to basically be right here. And it's just going to be like var clubs, and we're just going to magically have that I enumerable. And it's not actually going to execute the function. It's literally just going to fake it, mock it, and put it in there so that you don't actually have to execute that function. It's just going to fake it for you. Then what's going to happen is we're actually going to execute on the result. We're going to go club controller. Let me see here. We're going to have to bring in the sut. I forgot. We need to come up here. We need to actually bring in our sut. So we're going to go up here. We're going to bring in our sut. And if you don't know what a sut is, this is the what we're actually going to be executing on. Our sut is going to be the club controller. And the way that we actually bring in this is it's kind of like strange to think that you can actually do this, because you work so much in MVC, but you never actually see somebody bring in like a controller to like another place. Like a controller is just something that is just hit by endpoints. But with unit tests, you're actually bringing in the controller, and I'll show you what it looks like. It's kind of strange looking. So we're going to go here. We're going to go club controller. And we're going to pass in our club repository, our photo service, and I'm actually doing this stuff like on the fly. So a lot of times, like I do make mistakes. So we're actually going to have to bring in that HTTP context. So we're going to bring in the HTTP context accessor. You don't really need to even know what it is in this case. So just bring it in. Don't worry about like what exactly it is. It's not going to be important for your unit testing. And we're going to bring it in here. Then we're going to fake it. We're going to go in here. We're going to go fake. Then we're going to go HTTP context accessor. Okay. Then we're going to go up here and we need to make it accessible to all the places in our app. And this is actually a function that Microsoft made. This isn't something that I actually made. So we're going to go here. We need to add that underline. And once again, you are mocking and you're passing in a bunch of fake data to this thing. And we actually need to go up here. We're going to go club controller. Then we're going to go club controller. Just like that. And this is going to be just regular club controller. And this needs to be underlined. So these are the dependencies, and this is actually the system under test. And then we need to pass in our HTTP context accessor. And the whole idea of this is that we need to pass in these fake repositories. Otherwise, if we don't have this, I'll just show you like what it looks like when we don't have this. It's literally because we have to, because this is, when we execute this controller, when we do so, we actually have to. It is like totally mandatory that we pass in all of those fake repository or those fake dependencies. Otherwise, it won't work. And it also exists because there actually needs to be something to execute on when it's faked for it to actually be able to return. So, quick little fact for the day. Then we go down in here. So the result is going to be our club controller. The thing that we're going to actually execute on is going to be the club controller.the_index. Then we go down here. Now we can finally do our assertions. And our assertions, if I had to give a hard fast rule for controllers, it's do object checking, object check actions. So check your actions, which are just going to be objects. And then also check your view model. And if you don't have a view model, just check the objects. If you're just checking to make sure, in this case, we're just returning success, but in a production environment, if you're working for somebody, they're not going to tell you what you need to actually assert on. And if you want just like a guideline, test the actions, which are going to be objects, and also test the view model for what it's returning. And that should cover it, not unless you have some kind of use case. But I don't think we're even going to return view models in this. I'll actually check it, and we're just going to check the type. And we're going to make sure that the type that is returning is a task of iAction result. Should be type result, and only assignment can be used as an assignment. We're getting some kind of funky error here. I think it's because I don't have that. Should. Okay, we need to bring in fluent assertions. And we also need to bring in iAction result. I hope this one works. Bringing in all those dependencies like that is stressful, but we've already gotten like through 90% of it. So just kind of, bear with me here. Okay, great. So we've got success. Actually, it only said sync 1 up to date. Skipping analyzers. Okay. I'm going to say run all tests. Make sure that all the tests are running. So it's detecting to test, build started, it's launching the build, Sometimes this thing can take a lot whenever you first. Okay, so 2 tests passed and we are good to go. And you want to go into your test explorer right here and make sure, number 1, that it's recognizing all your tests, and number 2, that they're working. And you can see our test is working right here. So actually, I'm going to go inside here. This is totally on the fly, and I'm going to see if this thing has a view model. Maybe we can test the view model and make it look a little bit better. And it'd be interesting to kind of see, step by step how to look at building these tests. So what's happening here is that it's going to go into this index function. Magic's going to happen. Don't know what's going on, and it's just going to literally return this club. That's what this call to is doing. It's saying, hey, when this thing executes, when this repository get all is executed inside this function, I want you to not actually go inside and go to that repository and execute that function. I literally just want you to return this. Don't go inside that function, just return this. And then it's going to do our result. It's going to go through here. It's going to return our fake. And if you look here, it actually returns the fake. Faked systems, collection, generic. We've got a fake club in here, yielded no result. And then it's going to actually return the view. Okay, so we've got our index. Now let's actually move on to another controller and just do another example here. So we're going to go fact. Then we're going to go public. Void, because we're never returning anything. We're going to go club controller again. Remember that we do the class, then we do the method, and this one we're going to go returns success. That one looks good. Go down here, and very similar to our previous is that we want our arrange, so we want to come here. We want to start thinking about what we're going to arrange. So we're going to go arrange. We need an ID. We're just going to give it 1. We don't need you can mock integers like that, but I think in this case it's just easier just to pass it in there. And you could just literally pass it into the function, but I think it's actually better. And it's good coding practice to actually arrange that stuff. It can get a little bit sloppy, and if your code's too sloppy and you submit a pull request that and you just have those integers passed in there, it's probably going to get rejected and you're probably going to get yelled at. So don't want that to happen. Make sure your code doesn't have to be perfect, but put in a little bit. Put in a little bit of effort. So we've already got our repository built out, so we don't want. And the great thing is that once you get all that stuff built out, there's not as much. It doesn't take as much effort, and the developers that come after you who are going to have to test this are really going to thank you because you put all that stuff in there and you didn't just put everything within that function. And I need to change this to repository. So we're going to go returns, we're going to go club, then we're going to go down here. So we've got our act, then we actually want to act on this, and this is going to be a lot easier, once again, because we've already got all this stuff brought in. So we're going to go detail, then we're going to go ID, then we're going to go down here, we're going to go assert, and then we're going to do, once again, just another check. This should be of type task and I action result. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead, just click this run button. Go ahead and run these tests. Hopefully they pass. Oh, okay. We didn't run all of them. Go down here, run all tests. Should be 3 tests passed. Go into our test explorer. All of our tests are passing. We are good to go. And that is pretty much it. The create controller cannot be tested because this is actually static. The get user ID is an extension method, and one of the bad things about extension methods is that they're static and they can't be tested. But most of this is pretty self-explanatory. If you wanted to test the rest of this, it would be super easy to do, and you literally just go through, just start mocking all these repositories, create your fake edit view model, and just test them one by one, and it's literally no different from the rest of them. So I feel like going through most of this would be redundant because this is like 90% of it right here. And just realizing stay away from static methods if you can. If you're coding something and you have to use a static method, that's okay, but just for testing purposes, stay away from static methods. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. After this, we're going to move on to testing repositories. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.